Hey, what song has the most iconic saxophone riff in rock history? Now, many critics say it belongs to a song that came out in the late 1970s. I was a young disc jockey at the time. I can tell you this, we played the hell out of it, but good Lord, every radio station played the hell out of it. What I most remember is our station's music director. It was a guy named Bruce Wayne. And I remember him telling me, Dom, do you realize this song doesn't really have a chorus? The saxophone riff is the chorus. I don't think I would have noticed it if he hadn't pointed it out. And yet, the guy who played the sax on this song hated how it turned out, even though it led to a huge spike in sales of the instrument. This time on Beyond the Tracks, I'll share the story of this big summertime hit, its unforgettable signature sound, and a dispute over who came up with that unforgettable riff in the first place. It's all on the way. I'm Dom Testa. This story begins with a singer-songwriter from Scotland, the son of a coal miner. Now, like a lot of young people in the 1960s, he fell under the spell of Bob Dylan and, of course, the Beatles. I mean, everybody did back then. So this young man, still a teenager, grabbed a guitar and headed for London. He ended up playing on street corners and in the underground stations, busking for a few pounds here and there. Now, over the next few years, he bounced around with various local bands until the early 1970s brought his first real taste of success. He was the lead singer in a group that cracked the Billboard Top 10 with a song that featured a chorus almost everyone knows.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
But things, as they often do, went sour. There were management issues, and they had the usual artistic differences. You know, the ones that have broken up plenty of bands. So they split. And you might think, well, that's that. He'll move on and start a new band. Well, that was not that. Because now our singer found himself in a legal mess. He was unable to do what he lived for, which was record music. In fact, several years went by where he and the other band members were actually barred from recording at all. That doesn't seem right. They were in a sort of musical purgatory while the lawyers duked it out, you know, as lawyers will do. When he finally broke free and was able to go back into the studio, our singer-songwriter had a nice little backlog of songs to work on. Now, the song we're talking about was one of those, and it featured lyrics that people later would look back and say, well, that reflected his excitement over getting back to work. The lyrics included, when you wake up, it's a new morning. The sun is shining. It's a new morning. It sounds like a fresh start, right? And besides that optimistic feel, he also had an idea for a musical hook that would practically define the song. Only at first, his idea was to play this hook on a guitar. He even recorded a demo where he did just that. And that demo, by the way, will wind up being kind of important. We'll get to that in just a bit. Well, he played this demo for a few friends. He played it for some musicians, including the guy who would eventually play lead guitar on the track. But the guitar player told him, dude, this... He probably didn't say dude. That's just how I hear it in my head. Dude, this hook isn't a guitar part. He says, you need to go find a saxophone player for this. So that's what he did. Now, his first choice was a guy named Pete Zorn. Sadly, Pete wasn't available at the time, busy with other commitments. But you know, that's the life of a session player, right? If you get offered a gig, you take the gig. Well, based on how everything turned out later, you got to wonder if old Pete ended up kicking himself. But, you know, hindsight, right? Anyway, our Scottish singer eventually found a guy named Raphael Ravenscroft. Sounds like he could be a Marvel character. Raphael agreed to play the sax part, but he had one request. Instead of using a soprano sax, as the singer had suggested, Raphael thought it would be better with an alto sax. Fine. So that's what they did. Now, the song was released as the first single off this new album in February 1978. And you know what? It was not an immediate hit. In fact, it took something like 2 months before it even cracked Billboard's Hot 100 at number 82. But as the weeks went by, more and more radio stations found the song, fell in love with its sound. Listeners fell in love with it. They began grabbing their phones, calling into radio stations and requesting it, and it slowly crept up the chart. By June of 78, it had crawled all the way up to number 2 in Billboard. And that's where it stayed, at number 2 for week after week after week. The song never could inch up just one more spot to get to number 1. It remained stuck at number 2 for an incredible 6 weeks. How frustrating. Now, you might be asking, because I know I did, what is this song that kept it out of the number 1 spot for a month and a half? Because it was just one song that stayed there. Well, it was a pop record by the younger brother of the Bee Gees. Yeah, Andy Gibb camped out at number 1 with his hit single, Shadow Dancing. Well, maybe he couldn't get past Andy Gibb, but our singer still had a massive hit on his hands. It did reach the top of the charts in Canada and Australia. I mean, it was a top 10 smash around the world. In the US, radio stations often described it that year as the song of the summer. I definitely remember, no matter what park you went to or what swimming pool you visited, yeah, at every pool, every transistor radio was blasting this song. Here's a funny thing about it, though. Raphael, who played the sax, would tell you he didn't even like the way his part turned out. To him, it sounded flat. He said it was out of tune. In his words, it, quote, irritated him. Then there was a bit of controversy. Ooh, we love our controversies, don't we? Raphael later claimed that he came up with that riff. But you remember the demo version I mentioned earlier? The one that had the hook being played on a guitar? That was recorded before Raphael ever showed up at the studio. So that kind of squashed any argument over who came up with it. One thing is for sure, though. After the song became a smash hit, music stores said sales of saxophones through the roof. And this particular woodwind instrument started showing up more frequently on pop songs. No, this wasn't the first hit record with a sax, but some music experts say it, let's say, encouraged other acts to strategically place them in their songs. For the next few years, the saxophone, it was everywhere. And of course, who could forget? Hey, the sax is sexy, right? It had a great run throughout the 80s. So, even though he didn't come up with the riff himself, did Raphael Ravenscroft at least get handsomely paid for playing it on this smash hit record, the one which contributed to this tidal wave of songs with a sax? Well, no. Actually, no, he did not. Now, you got to remember, first of all, nobody knew it was going to be a hit. So for his session work, because that's really what Raphael was, he was a session musician, he was paid essentially union scale, which was about 27 pounds. At that time, that would be like $50 in US money. In today's money, roughly $250 to play the sax part that defined one of the biggest hits of the decade. But there is good news, though, because this song really launched his career. Suddenly, everybody wanted Raphael on their recording sessions. Artists like Tina Turner, John Lennon, Pink Floyd, Robert Plant, even ABBA. Suddenly, he was able to charge 5,000 pounds a session. That's a pretty good raise. Well, meanwhile, the album featuring this hit single sold something like 5 million copies. And get this, 30 years after its release, the song was still earning our Scottish singer more than $100,000 a year in royalties for just that one song. It may have come out in 1978, but it's still played all the time on classic rock and pop stations. You'll hear it in bars and restaurants. I heard it in a restaurant 2 days ago. You'll hear it in clothing stores, at the airport, dentist offices, just about anywhere they play classic hits. And as of early 2026, it's been streamed on Spotify well over 300 million times. And when you hear it, you can't help but swim inside that saxophone melody that Raphael Ravenscroft supplied for singer-songwriter Jerry Rafferty and his smash hit from the summer of '78, Baker Street. You know, Billboard magazine says Baker Street has, quote, the most recognizable sax riff in pop music history, and I think they may be right. And that demo version, the one where Jerry Rafferty played the hook on his guitar, I can give you a little taste of that too. Here's what it sounded like. It was a terrific session guitarist named Hugh Burns, the guy who ended up playing guitar on the actual hit record, who recommended replacing that guitar hook with a saxophone. You know, just little suggestions like that kind of changed the course of songs we all know and love. I mean, would Baker Street have been as big of a hit without the sax? I mean, we'll never know, but I don't think it would have been. So shout out to Hugh Burns for not only his recommendation, but also for his brilliant guitar solo that does show up later in the song. That's one of my favorite guitar solos, too. Hugh also played guitar on another one of those big saxophone songs I played earlier, Wham's Careless Whisper. Hugh actually played on a bunch of George Michael hits, to be honest. Anyway, to bring it all home and even bring it full circle, let me tell you how Jerry Rafferty came up with his song's title. Those long years of legal trouble when he was banned from recording anything, well, during that stretch, he often stayed at a friend's house in London, and that flat was on Baker Street, which, by the way, is also where you'd find the home of the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes, 221B Baker Street. If you visit that address today, I think you find a Sherlock Holmes museum. Hey, you can enjoy all the songs from this episode on Spotify. I create a different playlist for each episode. So this one, Volume 2, has Baker Street, several other Jerry Rafferty songs, and a collection of those other famous saxophone songs. I even threw in some of the artists who simply got named in this episode. You will find a link to the Beyond the Tracks page on Spotify down in the video description. Next time, I'll share a story about a song that almost always makes any list of the greatest rock and roll tracks of all time. This one was actually a hit in 2 different decades. And somehow, it managed to come about even though the songwriter left his only copy of the lyrics in a taxi that he took to the recording studio. How he made up for that mistake is classic. Find out next time on Beyond the Tracks. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll subscribe and share this with your friends who enjoy music. I'm Testa.